from me. It was close.
Have to set the energy right.
Real close.
Everybody,
yeah.
Welcome to the party. We're so excited to be here. First thing I always like to know is throw it into the chat. We've already seen it start off a little bit. Where is everybody dialing in from? Love to talk about our global community. Let us know. South Africa in the building, Toronto in the building, Berlin, Vancouver, everybody everywhere. That's awesome. Super awesome.
Wild. It's pretty early for a lot of places as well, right? Like, I mean, for me, I'm UK. It's 4 o'clock. It's nearly home time for me. But look at this. NYC,
from
Houston.
Online. I love it.
Hannah Brown from the room next door, my employee. She's there. She's working hard. This is what we like. I'm in the room next door.
I love it, everybody. I love it. And just because we're getting there, we can't believe, like Fraser and I were talking about this before, but can't believe it's already Q4 that's about to sneak up on us.
Man,
let's throw some emoji.
Who is excited for Q4? Give us I want a fight if we're prepared for Q4. And then if we're not, just a sad face, just anything that represents sad times, because this thing is creeping up. We've been working on Q4 concepts like all week, and it's really happy. Well, at least people are semi-prepared. There's a few crying faces though.
We can use GIFs. Like we're happy. Of course we can. Of course we can.
Nah, we're in the future. Damn.
Of course. And then everybody, what I'm always excited to know before we jump into things here is just you're going to see we're going to throw a poll up on the screen really quickly. People have already started filling it out. If you can just tap right on the screen, where are you currently at right now? Just want to get a sense of what your day-to-days start to look like as we think about what we're starting to talk about on this one.
How people were on that before they even got on it. Look at that.
Most
before
definitely.
we even announced it, people were filling it out.
They figured it out. They figured it out. The polls on the tabs. I love it, everybody. Okay, sweet. Well, everyone, excited to get into things here. So as everybody knows, today we're about to talk about a super interesting topic around how to make high production ads that actually convert. We're going to spend a ton of money on these different things. How do we make sure that the entire process from start to finish is cleaned up as much as possible? And Fraser is going to bless us with his knowledge, of course. But before we dive into all the details, I always like to set the stage a little bit. So what that means is a quick motion intro as well as a housekeeping bit. So on the motion side of things, for those of you who have been to an event before, motion's the hub for creative strategy. And what that means is that creative is the most important lever for success in all of your paid advertising, as everyone knows. But there's a couple types of people who are involved. On one hand, we have analytical folks who are running the ads. And on the other hand, we have creative folks who are exactly that, creative and conceptual. So everything for the hub of creative strategy relates to how do we bring these two types of people, these two types of brains and teams together. And how motion helps facilitate this work is we make it easy to analyze, visualize, and then share this data across the board. So that's why we love to put on sessions like this. And then from a housekeeping perspective, first thing I wanted to call out is if anyone has any questions, on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's a bunch of tabs. In the Q&A tab, throw them all there and upvote anything that you'd like. The second thing I wanted to know, and I saw a Travis question that was already upvoted, is just related to the recording. Recording is definitely going to be made available, folks. And if anyone else asks, let's just spam the chat. Let them know we got your backs. We're taking care of it. And then the final announcement that I wanted to make here is that there's a bunch of cool things that we're cooking up on the motion end. So what that means is we have our Creative Strategy Summit that's coming out quite soon. So if you like content related to creative strategy, the Creative Strategy Summit's going to be huge. Click that button there. We'll also get a link into the chat so you can see what's going on. And then the other thing that I always want to call out, it's a really interesting time in our world, and at Motion, we're hiring. So for anyone who's interested, I've made a quick video on LinkedIn. So check us out. If there's a role that might be interesting to you, give us a shout. We're always curious and talking. Awesome. Okay, everybody, that's the level set and housekeeping piece. But now I want to get to it. This here is the man, the myth, the legend. I'm so excited and happy to talk to Fraser today. Fraser, we've been knowing each other for a little while now. I've been working together for a
Man,
little bit now too, right?
Yeah, you've been a member of our Slack for a while. We've been hitting back and forth for a while. Yeah, man, it's so exciting to speak because we've been trying to do something like this for ages, and it's good that we're finally doing it. I think we've got a good angle to go for as well, because like, you know, this is I am asked this all the time, the exact question that we're talking about. So, you know, we do them every day. Let's talk about it.
Of course, we have to. And everybody, why I'm so happy to have Fraser here is Fraser's the man. He's the co-founder of Ad Creative Agency, as well as starting Creative OS. And basically on his end, his content has generated over 100 million views, plus he's made millions of dollars for his clients. And why I think Fraser is the perfect person to talk to us about high production ads is his career started and he went to school for film and literally all the high production stuff. So he's going to be hitting us with a million different gems across the board. And for today, when we think about a rough agenda, everybody, basically I spoke about how do we think about creative strategy, and it's almost a flywheel that we're able to create. Whereas if we follow these steps, we'll produce the ultimate creative, and Fraser is going to add that spin for us to be able to say on the high production side, what does this start to come to life as? Amazing. So Fraser, I'm almost wondering if we can just like set the stage for people just with a little bit more of an introduction. So like you have the creative agency side, you have creative OS side of things. Like tell the people a little bit more about what your world looks like, if you're cool with it.
So main day to day is Fraggle. We make ad creative that actually converts. That's what I like to say. That's a mix of like UGC, high production, GIFs, images, everything. Essentially, we're an ad creative agency. We'll talk about this later, but we're not a UGC agency. We're an ad creative agency, which is really important to us. And and then on the side, I have Creative OS, which is this incredible project that I've built with 3 other amazing minded people. And that's essentially helping people who aren't yet at the stage where they can hire an agency, or they can, you know, like what's available for people which are spending a ton of money on ads every single month. Instead, you're kind of starting off and you have, right now it's what you have, like Canva is probably where most people are going to be making static ads. And so it's not great. It relies so heavily on you to do this stuff. And if you don't have that design ability already, or that ability to make performance creative, it's going to be really difficult for you to do it. So we made Creative OS, where you can literally just like throw in a template, do it, and happy days. But then when you reach the point where you want to outsource this stuff, then we've got Fraggle, and we're, you know, and it's amazing the clients that we've worked with even over the past 12 months.
Perfect. Yeah, I think being able to accommodate everybody across the board is so important. And then now where that takes us to is after setting the stage, when we kick off what this flywheel starts to look like, the very first step of the process is typically research. So understanding what the heck we actually want to do and what do we start to create. So what I'm curious about is, in your world, what's the very first thing you do to even get started in your process?
Yeah, I mean, for a start, it totally depends on the type of creative that we're making, right? Because they both kind of start at different places. I'm very lucky now that, you know, I have an amazing team of people, which, you know, creative strategists, which do a lot of this for me. But, you know, like our systems are set in place that the first thing we do is we're trying to generate concepts after we know more about the product, obviously, and what we're actually selling and who we're selling to, which is really important to know. After we know that, then we're looking at things like reviews, for example. We're seeing what real users' experiences on this, and then we look for inspiration after that, and then we start to develop concepts, and then we head into production, basically. So it's pretty, I'd say, it's ad creative, I think, is very like top and bottom heavy. Like not much really happens in this middle bit. It's like a lot of pre-production to get this stuff off the ground, and a lot of editing, especially if you're making UGC. Like the middle bit isn't, you know, like it's not, yes, it's important, but you know, it's it goes much faster than the rest of it. A lot of it is in the editing, and if you want to make high production, especially, so much of it is in the pre-production, right? Like from the concept in, we'll go through it later, but like, you know, shot listing, scripting, locations, like, you know, all this is, it's difficult, you know, but it all starts at that research stage, right? And especially when we've been working with a client for a while, part of that stage is looking at the data with tools like Motion to allow us to make better creative.
Love it. And something I'm curious about the research stage, and I know everybody's like super excited to dive into the production, the pre-planning and all that stuff. We will get there in a second. But basically, we hear a lot of people talk about like reviews, looking for ideas, all that kind of stuff. Talk to the people a little bit about how you like to use reviews to actually inform what you'll start to tackle.
Yeah, for sure. So I posted this on Twitter, X, whatever the heck you want to call it now, a while back. And essentially, this is our framework for like endless creative ideas. This is the way that you can make, you know, literally you can, as long as you follow this process, you will be able to come up with new concepts every single week, every single month. The first thing is we're researching. We want to know everything that we possibly can do about the SKU, about the product, everything like that, right? We need to know what makes the customer tick. That's so important because it's the customers buying the product. It doesn't matter whether you like an ad or your rest of your team like an ad. If the customer doesn't like it, then they're not going to buy it, right? So that's the first thing we do is we're looking at the research. And then the next thing we do is review mining, where essentially we're looking at all the reviews for a certain SKU. You can use ChatGPT to help you a little bit, but essentially like a quick example here is like, you know, the review is this bar has the best flavor with the cleanest ingredients. I eat them basically every day for breakfast. And when I skip, I actually crave them. Okay. So we can very easily turn that into an angle of someone picking up a bar every single day for breakfast, because we know that that's going to relate to the customer, because there's one review of someone saying that. And the chances are is there's going to be a lot more customers which are going to feel the exact same. Right. So that's really important. And that's how we use the reviews there to guide us into making great creators. And then from there, we're finding inspo. So we want to find out in what method is it best to deliver this? Is it UGC? Is it high production? Is it a GIF? Is it a static? Whatever. Right. And then we're using tools like Adbox and Foreplay in order to find like some inspiration, save that, put it together in a deck, and then let's present those ideas.
Love it. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Like being able to leverage both positive and negative across the board, so it works. Okay, thank you, Marina. Appreciate the heads up that there's some background noise. I'll fix that on my end. Fraser, though, to set the stage for the next step here. So this is where the meat and potatoes start to come to life, in my opinion. So what that means is on the ideation front, after we've conducted this research, typically it's all about just look and feel and starting that to make that come to life. But something that I'm curious about is in a high production world, I think the very first thing is just like pre-production before anything else. So talk us through your pre-production process and everything that's involved at that step.
Yeah, I mean, it's that is definitely like the lengthiest process, right? So I think maybe the easiest way to I've made another cool little graphic. Mind out. Are you ready for this, everyone? It's going to blow you away. This is so, although I say Creative OS don't use Canva, I did make this on Canva. So I'm sorry, everyone, but you know, it was already made. Okay. So these are our timelines for UGC and high production, completely different ways of production. Okay. And this is why, you know, normally you'll find that companies doing high production are charging more than a UGC agency, because there's just more work to it. So if we look specifically at like high production concept, we're doing all the core ideas, variations, scripts, all that, and we're pitching that to the client after that. And then pre-production, this is the what I meant by the big chunk, right? Casting, location booking, scheduling, shot listing, props list, all this stuff, right? Like I have a team of people you know, which are incredible at doing this, and they make this look easy, right? But I know that if I tried to do all this now, I haven't been out of it for so long, I know that I'd find it incredibly difficult. But this is where, especially when you're doing pre-production, because you can't afford to waste any time. We're paying for locations here, we're paying for actors' times, where, you know, like so much money is involved in this. Same way when you're producing a movie, that's why they cost so much, is because people's time costs a lot of money. So the pre-production side of stuff is really vital. And then we head into production and edit and all that. But that gives you an idea there. You know, the pre-production, I call that in UGC like more creator management. That's more what you're doing there, is you're, you know, sending out the briefs, sending out the products, all that stuff. Once you have a talented creator to do the shooting, they do a lot of that for you, but then you have to guide them with the shooting briefs and the edit guides and all that good stuff. But that gives you like you know, a decent idea there of kind of, you know, what the timeline looks like.
And then from the timeline, I think what's super cool is just being able to isolate exactly why it's different, like you had mentioned, where the pre-production work falls onto you to make that come to life. And something we started off with was just that research stage. So understanding the pain points and what exactly needs to be created.
So
So
important.
and what I'm curious about is like, once you understand those pain points and start to get some of the look and feel, how much of that starts to inform, like, okay, in the pre-production stage, like, where am I shooting? Who do I want to get? And all of that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, we're big advocates at Fraggle of including the demographic within the ad, right? Like it's the same way that if it was, you know, if it was I'm pulling an example straight out of the air here, but like if it was, you know, if it was a makeup product, right? Like primarily, stereotypically, we're looking at a female is going to be advertising this to us, okay? And so it wouldn't appeal as much if it was, you know, a builder putting on some makeup, right? Because the chances are they aren't the same people buying the product, okay? Now, we try to do that as much as we can do when it comes to the creative, because that has a massive leverage in how that creative performs. You know, that's why that's why we have dashboards set up in motion to test creators, right? Because different creators will work with different audiences. And then also, again, when it comes down to location, we want to, if it's a product which is primarily used in the bathroom, let's show it in the bathroom. It's just simple stuff like this that's what pulls a bad and a good advert apart. So yeah, I mean, that research again has a massive effect. And for us, it's the creative strategist, where when they're putting this stuff together, they'll be communicating with the producer and going, okay, for this we probably need a woman like 40 to 50-year-old, and we're going to need a house location. So then the producer is then looking at all that kind of stuff, pulling everything together, juggling times. It's my worst nightmare personally. I absolutely hate to do that. But, you know, thankfully I have a great team that does that for me. But, you know, it's so important. Like that research stage, the concept stage and research stage, like goes through the entire thing, right?
Most definitely. And the part that I get curious about now is like, we're talking a lot about, okay, these are the pain points and who is the general like persona that should embody this work. And you'd alluded to it earlier, but I'm wondering if you can give anyone who's attending here a little bit more insight in how you marry the pain points, the persona, and then the ultimate look and feel. Where does inspiration for that look and feel start to come to life for you?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to look and feel, the first thing obviously is you want to know what the brand is about. The best way to do that, if they're already advertised, is to look at, you know, the current media. If not, then to look at competitors. What's their general look and feel? Although I never say copy your competitors, try and do like 10% better than them. That's, you know, it's still, you know, a major reason why they're successful and potentially you aren't, right? So yeah, looking at stuff like that to get an idea of the look and feel. But although we're making performance creative here, it doesn't necessarily need to be on brand. The brand will still have a certain look and feel that you want to marry into the ad creative, and then that carries on through to the landing page as well, which is again very important. All needs to be one cohesive feel, and that's just another driver for success, essentially.
I think cohesive is the perfect word to talk about it, because cohesion is like across the board, from your research to the look and feel to the end product to the landing page to the post-purchase experience. So getting it all kind of in order is the best way to think about it.
For sure.
And then, Fraser, we've come to the point now where we've started to understand the pain points, know the personas more, have the idea of where we're shooting and all that good stuff. I guess like the question becomes, and the question for me becomes like, so what's next? The inspo is ready. We're ready to crush for brands. What do we do?
Yeah. So the first thing is we have to film it, right? So like so again, breaking it down, UGC and high production, they're the main things we make. When it comes to UGC, we will have, I can share this. I can share this with you, hopefully. Let's have a look. But essentially what we'll create is like a script / brief. Basically, we try to make like a nice one-pager for a lot of our creators, just because it's the easiest way. Sending them a load of paperwork isn't going to help anyone, right? So we have here quick example from one of our clients, but essentially we have all this like bobbins, like all the usual stuff, how to film, all this kind of stuff. But then it comes down to, you know, the actual bones of it. So it's like, what is it? What are we trying to make here? Lots of examples. So we use foreplay in order to send those examples, but there'll be examples that our creative strategist has pulled out. And then we go into like the script. What is this? What are we actually making? We've got examples, and we're essentially laying out a shot list for the creator, making their life as easy as possible so they know what to get. And then we also ask for some extra stuff that they can throw in. They can throw in their own sauce, and they can start to, you know, to really make something creative. But as long as they hit these points, we're normally happy with it, right? Like these have changed over time. This is probably quite an old one now, but we have like, you know, it's like a minimum of like 10 to 15 shots that we're asking them to create. And this allows us to actually make what we want to make. So after this, they just send the raw footage to us and we edit it. That's really important. Like for us, you know, we're editors, we're creators here. We want to have that final say, and it helps when it comes to, you know, liaising with clients afterwards. But then on the other side of the coin, we have like high production. Now, this is like a whole different ball game, right? So this is for one of our clients, Dude Pruner. And this is like a shot list, essentially. This is what we will use on set for what we're going to create. So like we have example images, whether they're like memes off the internet or they're crudely drawn hand drawings, or they're like examples from other ads. We're basically pulling stuff together here so that when we're on set, first of all, we know what frame number it is, what setup, what shot type, what's a shot subject, all the way down to what props are on. If we're filming on a surface, what is it? What background is it? What script is it? Whether it's got VFX, and then we're ticking this off as we're on set. So like when we're on set, this is like a full-on fueled, like, you know, arguably like Hollywood level production, right? Like we, our writer, creative strategist, Jack, he went to film school with me, and, you know, all this stuff that we've learned and we've used on actual sets, we're now bringing to, you know, to Facebook ads, basically, right? But we're making it accessible for everybody, because these are the best ways to make this stuff. Having a really detailed shot list that the director can look through and knows where they are. Script supervisor can be going through it and ticking off, making sure we have the right stuff. The director can liaise with, you know, whoever's on camera to make sure we got the right stuff. Like when you have other people's money on the line, i.e. your clients, because that's what it is at the end of the day, like you need to make sure that you're doing this stuff efficiently, and with how fast you have to pump this stuff out, like you cannot leave any of it to, you know, to just like hope and pray that this works, right? We've had like 3 or 4 day shoots where by the end of it, we're all like we never want to step foot on a set ever again. Like we're absolutely knackered, but then we'll come out with like, you know, 10 incredible ads at the end of it, and we're like, man, it was so worth it. Like it looks amazing, everything just like, yeah, killer.
So good. I know everyone's just kind of drooling in the chat or whatever it might be on like, oh my gosh, like that's the shot list we need in our lives. And honestly, Fraser, like I see how you marry the two, because the way that you think about UGC and the way that you think about performance ads and applying it to the high production side seems so cool to me. Like I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. The follow-up that I have now is I want to unpack that pre-production stage a little bit more. So you've shown the briefs, you've shown the shot list. I actually want to get really into the nitty-gritty. So I'm just thinking about like, how do you find the right talent? How do you find the locations you're shooting at? Like even granular stuff along those lines.
Yeah, for sure. So our producer is the person that will take care of like all the casting, everything like that, right? Because that essentially needs to be like one person's job, because they're so busy, you know, like they're finding casting, also finding locations, but then the main thing is scheduling, especially when it comes to high production. Like for one of our clients, you know, we might have 5 actors on a set, we might have 6 actors on a set. Trying to mesh all those schedules together is unreal, right? So yeah, so when we're doing casting, we're on websites. For the UK anyway, it's called Star now. There's another version called Backstage, which is what we use for like US stuff. But basically you put out a post, people apply, and then you coordinate, see whether they're right for the role. That's fairly simple. But then also sometimes we have used like Facebook groups, or we've used like Instagram, anything like that where we can find the right people. But usually if you want high production stuff, you're looking for actors, and so that's normally the best place to do that. And when it comes to location, again, this is UK centric because of where we are, but there's a website called Scouty, which is basically an absolute massive index. You can search whatever you want, like, you know, 1-bedroom flat, whatever, search a location. It'll give you a load of people's houses, people's studios, whatever, that they have put up there to rent. You pay a day fee, an hourly fee, whatever, and you can go and shoot in them, basically. But then before that, we were just using Airbnb before we even discovered that. So, like, you know, it's definitely against their terms of service to be able to do this. But like, we were working with Airbnb owners when we needed a house location. We were just going, look, we need to do some filming. We need it for like a day. Is there any chance we can just like rent it out? Nobody's going to be sleeping in there. Nothing. Like, we, you know, you can hire it out in the evening if you want. You know, just like, you know, grabbing what you can. But Scouting is an amazing. I'm pretty sure there's some in the US as well. It's essentially just a location database. Peerspace is another one. But yeah, there's a lot of different apps that allow you to do that. But yeah, in terms of locations, and then also like, it helps that we have a studio. Like, you know, like I'm in our studio now, and it's small, but it does, you know, a lot of the products we do are tabletop products. So for that, it's great because we can throw down a backdrop, or we can, you know, we'll talk about it later, or we can use like AI to replace backgrounds and stuff. But yeah, like it's surprising what you can do in a small space as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, super helpful. And I love that people are diving in the chat with some of the pieces along the lines too. And then Fraser, the last question that I have here, just from like a granular perspective, is we hear a lot, like, just use your iPhone, shoot it on there, whatever it might be. UGC, definitely get it. But equipment wise, like what does your world look like?
Man, see, I'm a massive nerd when it comes to like gear. Like, man, I will, like, my co-founder will say it. The money that I like spend on gear is unreal. But that's just, you know, that's just me. But like, yeah, I mean, we have like probably over £100,000 worth of equipment, probably, which we've collected over like the 5-6 years that we've been doing this. We shoot on like primarily for the nerds out there as well. I mean, I'm on it now, which is a Canon C70. If any nerds are out there, we're not Sony. There's a few people in the chat saying Sony. I don't like Sony. I don't like the menus. I don't like the color. Get over it, okay? But yeah, and then we've got aperture lights, and like it's a big deal, right? Like, man, when we film on set, sometimes we have to rent a van because there's just like so much gear that we have to do. But like you're saying, this like UGC shoot on a phone. 110%. But man, the brand new iPhone, I annoyingly, I always get the new iPhone on release day, but I didn't this year because the pre-order was a mess. But like the new iPhone, I've seen some insane stuff, like high production videos that people are shooting on their iPhone. Because now you can, with a USB-C, you can plug in a hard drive, so you can film at like the highest possible bit rates, and then you can film like you know, flat picture. Like, it turns it into a cinema camera, which is insane. And like, I have planned out, like, because I'm starting up YouTube again, so I have planned out that we're going to make a product video with the new iPhone, and we're going to, you know, I'll post it all over the place. But it's possible. Like, you don't need to invest in £100,000 worth of gear to do this, but it helps, right? Of course. But it helps.
It's for the nerds out there too, though, right? Because it's just like that background is really like banged it into you.
For sure.
Like, this is how the world
can
look
man,
like.
Look, it looks like I'm filming it. It looks like I'm filming at sunset, but it's just a light above my head that I've clamped up in the ceiling, right? This is what I mean. Like, but again, this is what I always say: it's that extra 10%. If you can get that extra 10% above all your competitors and everyone else doing it, your stuff is going to be miles better. So if that extra 10% is the 10 minutes it takes you to set up another light to make the product look better, then it's worth it, right? Like it's that stuff that separates you from the competitors, what I think anyway.
I 100% need a tutorial. I have my map that does the heavy lifting for me, more or less. But I need you to put me on game.
That map that map is a staple of every call we've ever been on. And I have so many questions, but I don't even want the answers. I don't even want the answers to them. So it's fine. The mystery is nice.
The mystery is the best. Amazing. Okay, Fraser, the next thing I'm thinking about here is when it comes to high production, I think a lot of this too is when we think about what people get, if they might get nervous about it, it's just like the time, the energy, the money that's involved to not know what's going to happen there. So I'm curious on your end, you've alluded to this stuff here, What I'm curious about specifically is like, how important are timelines in managing against us? And that could include like prioritizing the shot list. It could include like specifically project management tasks. Talk to the people about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. Sorry, can you say the question again? I completely blacked out. My ADHD went full on. Like, I was listening, but I also wasn't listening at the same time. I can hear people in the office laughing because they know exactly what's going on. So
It's all good, man. It's all good. Basically, the context first was just around like, where do people get nervous when it comes to
yeah,
high production? And then I was
okay,
mentioning just some like places where people might get nervous is just like the timelines, the uncertainty, the expense that goes on. And it's
yeah,
like, when you think about those nerves that come along the lines of what's high production, how do you manage against that to consistently crush it? So I suggested it might be
yeah.
timeline management. I was thinking it could be like prioritization of shot list on certain shoot days so you're flexible. But that's what I'm
Yeah.
curious about in
Yeah,
terms of
for
your
sure. I
process.
mean, at the end of the day, like from a brand perspective anyway, number one thing is if you're investing in high production, then you need to be willing to potentially like you need to be willing to spend some money, right? If it's not an agency cost, then if you're running it as ads, that I hope you are, because that's what we're here talking about, you're willing to spend some money on those ads to see whether it's going to work or not, right? Like this stuff, like we build it for conversions, but it might not necessarily translate to the conversions that we see on Facebook. It might be footfall in a store for people to go and buy. It might be, it's a much longer funnel, right? Although saying that, like we've had some absolutely like banging videos which have done like so well, top of the funnel, and people are just buying it, right? But you do have to go into any of this ad creative stuff with a hint of like, okay, I need to accept that I'm going to have to spend some money on it. So as long as you are fine with that, then that should hopefully make the nerves a little bit easier. But like, yeah, like timelines are another thing. Like there's a lot going on here, and if you're an agency like us and you're making a lot of different stuff, you're jumping from project to project. For me, that's the most nerve-wracking thing, is getting this to the clients on time. And I'm constantly going on about my team about timelines and turnaround times and putting VAs here and whatever to try and make things easier, because clients want the content. They also don't understand how difficult it is to make this stuff because they don't know what goes into it. So that's another thing, like communicating to your client, or if you're brand side, communicating to the rest of the team, like, look, this is where we are right now. Here's an estimate of how long it's going to take us to get there, and just making everyone aware of the process. Because as soon as you're like, I'm sure there's some of our clients in here now that you've seen all that stuff that I showed you with all the pre-pro stuff, you'll understand why this stuff takes so long, right? But like a lot of the time, people don't know that, and they like to, play their cards quite close to their chest. But as soon as you open up about those timelines, it alleviates a bit of that pressure. But yeah, number one thing is just be ready to invest in this stuff, because it's going to invest in time and money for sure.
And in your experience, for anyone who's tuning in, like, where should they be on the lookout for where things might, like, lack of better terms, shit might hit the fan? Like, is it shoot day?
Yeah.
Is it pre-work? Is it post-work? Like, where are we on the
I mean,
lookout for?
we have some wild stories at Fraggle of where an actor has pulled out the day before shooting. We had that maybe a month ago. Actor pulled out literally, we were about to leave the office, and then the actor pulled out. Like it was a day prior to the shoot. We were all packed, ready to go. Actor pulled out, and so we had to, our creative strategist was like, okay, because again, our producer was off as well, which again, like, man, it couldn't have happened at a worse time. But yeah, like, times like that, like, yeah, the tail end of pre-production is where things can go wrong, because it can be actors starting to drop out, locations, there might be a problem there. Like that's where shit can hit the fan, right? Production, if it's planned properly, is a normally pretty smooth process, right? Because we do all those shot lists and everything there, it's nice and smooth and easy, and we can go through that because it's planned and there's so many heads together in one set. But when it's pre-production, there's too many things, too many plates spinning to not expect one of them to fall down. Yeah.
And what word of advice would you give people to manage against that? Like, is it just like accept and move on, or is there specific things you can do?
Yeah. I mean, everyone says it, but prepare to fail 100%. Like if you have a plan in place where if this goes wrong, we can still do this, then definitely. But yeah, I think just like, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're working in creative and if you're working in video, probably especially, but any kind of marketing, we all know that like you have to be able to think on your feet very quickly, right? Like anyone in this industry will be able to tell you that, if your landing page goes down on the first day of Black Friday sale, like everyone is like, okay, let's all pull together and let's get this through. And that's the only way you can prepare for it, is by these things constantly happening to kind of prepare you to it. Like, okay, well, it's all right. We've had that before, so it's fine. Don't worry. We can sort that. Let's pull in this favor from here. Let's ask this person to come in and do this. Yeah, it is a real like exposure therapy thing for sure.
You have to fight through the fire. Life throws things
every
at you,
time, man.
like you learn every time.
It is quite literally that meme of like everything on fire and just like, this is fine. This is fine. Like
Most
that's the marketing industry. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm curious about here is just like AI in this process. So AI, I have to talk about it because it is such like a buzz topic right now. So does AI play a role in your world at all?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried on numerous occasions to implement it in the scripting and concept side of things. My creative strategist Jack will probably tell you how many times it probably makes his job longer than it should do. Personally, I don't quite think it's there yet in terms of taking out a lot of the legwork for an actual creative. So we've tried to implement it with like ChatGPT. One thing ChatGPT and AI is really great at is like really short form stuff. Like if I'm making, I did a resource for Creative OS, which was like ChatGPT prompts in order to make ad copy for your static ads from your reviews. Right, you dump in a load of reviews, you tell it what to do, and it spits out a load. Like that is solid, and we do use it for kind of stuff like that. But quite a lot now, we're using it more towards like the post-production side of stuff, because that's much more formulaic in terms of like, there's a lot of fantastic editing tools out there. Like there's that, if you're editing podcasts, there's that auto pod where it cuts the podcast for you in Premiere, which is insane. But then like we've been using it more recently for, we'll film a shot in our studio here on a white background or a color background, something like that, and we want to put it in a bathroom. Then we'll replace that background afterwards. We'll auto cut it out. We'll track it. We'll generate the background using Midjourney, and then we'll slap that in, and then suddenly we're in a different environment. Like that level of like, I mean, I'd hate to call it like virtual production, like The Mandalorian and stuff like that, right? Where they're filming on like these big LED screens and stuff like that. But that's like a tiny little piece of like our own little bit of it, where like if we just want to spice up just a product shot just a little bit, just being able to put it in a different environment using AI and like image generation is so good. Like the image generation stuff of AI, if you're an ad creative, like that is incredible, and you need to delve into that. The creative strategy side of stuff, I'm not sold yet. And so we don't really use it much in that process now.
Speaking through experience first. So it makes a ton of sense. I don't think there are any wrong answers there, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just what's happening. Okay. So I'm super appreciative of you giving everyone a peek just into the process of how the high production pieces come to life. I think the biggest question that I have of them all is like, we're both straight shooters on this one. It's like, why do you think you and the team are so great at producing high production ads that are actually converting, since this is such a big topic?
Yeah, because we've just been doing it for so long. Like, I've been working in film well before like university and video, so's my co-founder, like it's just because we've been doing this stuff for so long. We've been making ad creatives since like 2019, 2020. And there is a clear distinction when you look at our stuff compared to maybe one of these like AI-led UGC agencies, which pops up by a guy which is essentially just whitelisting, other UGC creators. Like they pop up, they do this stuff, they make their money, and they run. Like there's no investment from either party on that, and it really makes me sad. But like truly, I think it's just because you do this day in day out. We're delivering like 400 videos every month, right? Like this is not an easy game to play, and it comes with experience. The more miles you put in, the better your stuff is going to be, because you're just going to experience everything. You're going to experience everything, bad and good, and then that allows you to make better creatives. There is no better than working with an agency which will own up for their mistake and be like, yeah, that was a bad call from us, instead of just trying to paper over it. And that comes with experience.
The reps. I'm a big basketball fan. It's why, like, if you get 3 days in, 1,000 shots every single time, like, that builds the memory and it builds the expertise.
Sure.
So it's like, makes sense in the gym, essentially, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Although I don't hit the gym, I know it looks like it. You know,
I have to start. Both have to. Now's the change.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But yeah, sure. I'll go with it.
Okay, the last piece that I'm curious about before we start getting to Q&A here is we've done all the work that actually leads us up to the actual shoot day. And you spoke to us about, like, if everything goes to plan, shoot day should be pretty straightforward. So the picture that I want to paint is for people like who are doing these high production shoots. What can they expect out of them? And specifically for me, what that means is, like, how long does that day look? How many things are you shooting? And anything you're willing to share there.
I mean, days can dramatically range depending on how much you're filming. So like we came off one shoot last week, which was the shot list I showed you. That was probably, I think, our call time for everyone to be on set and to start shooting was maybe about 10 a.m. I think we finished around 3:30-ish. So not that bad, right? And that was for like one angle, you know, a few different hooks, like not bad. There was a lot of different setups and stuff, and it was, you know, on our feet all the time, but not that bad really. But then we've had days where we've been filming 3 or 4 angles in a day, and we're starting at 8, we're finishing at, you know, maybe 6 or 7, right? Like you can very easily drift into like a 12-hour day when you're filming this stuff. And especially for us, because, you know, like specifically we are quite a small team, I guess. You know, like when we go on set, it's pretty much like the office is out. You know, like our great editors who are based in in the US, like they can carry on working, they can carry on churning out the edits, but like the core team is out and we're shooting. So like that's really important about the time, is we need to be really fast, because we probably need to get into the office and start answering emails, right? So you can very easily drift into a 12-hour day of just filming like all day nonstop, and man, it gets you start to flag like big time, because you are like, you are, especially if you're, directing it as well, man, the questions that are being asked to you, left, right, and center is pretty wild, but it's no different to if you were shooting a TV commercial, right? Like you are essentially shooting the same thing, it's just for a different platform. But yeah, they can take
questions. This is just a quick reminder to throw it into the Q&A tab and upvote where it makes sense, because we're going to get there in 1 second. But I did have one final question that popped up as you were talking through, because basically we've seen the process to lead up to shoot day. We now have shoot day. Now you have all of this content essentially, right?
Yeah.
So there's the post-production work now. The main thing that I'm curious about is for anyone who's managing this process, whether it be an internal team, an agency along the way, or just whatever it might be. How long should it take to go from basically clips to version final or whatever?
Yeah, so we have a lot of systems in place, because when you're editing with variations and stuff, it can become quite messy, and then different variations in different aspect ratios, like your workload suddenly doubles, right? So we have a lot of guidelines in place to make sure that we're not going back and forth on stuff, right? But in terms of timeline, I think it's like, so once something hits edit, it gets given to an editor. I think it's like 48 hours until we have a draft, and then that draft will go to my co-founder Nick, who's like head of like production, I guess, and he will then review it. He'll give all the feedback he can do on that first draft from an editing perspective to make sure it fits the brief that we put together. And then I'll go back, then it's like 24 hours from there. And then, we try to make things as fast as we can do. So these deadlines are like worst case scenario, it's going to take a day. We normally try and get our editors to push this out fairly quickly, but we give ourselves normally around a week to edit all the angles for a client. usually. But again, that can drift if, if it's UGC especially and we haven't shot it. It might get to editing and we've realized they've actually missed out a shot which we need, and then we have to go back to production. They have to do that, then it comes back to editing. So there's a lot of tooling throwing, and again, this is why preparation is key and communication is key with this stuff. Is you want to limit that, because that's the stuff that really ends up taking the time. But yeah, for sure, it's difficult. Yeah, but again, if you navigate it correctly, I'd say around a week for maybe 30 videos or so, probably.
Amazing. Okay, folks, let's get to the Q&A here. Definitely want to hear what everyone's thinking and throw some questions at Fraser here. The number one upvoted question is about recording. 100% it's going to be shared, but there's actually the perfect other question from Paulina that pops up. So we've talked about everything from to initial variation and initial concept going live. So the question that Paulina has is, what's your approach to iterating on winning ads? So maybe I'll also add where are you looking to determine what's winning, and then following up with Paulina's question that we see there.
So we're primarily what I'd call a net new ad creative agency. So we're mostly focusing on the net new stuff, which we have variations upon. So it might be variating the hook, the body, whatever, right? What we're trying to do here is to create some net new winners. And then when it comes to all right, this winner here, the hook's really great here, let's stick that on the top of here. We don't really take care of that. It is something that we're looking at doing, because I know it's such an important part of ad creative. But I think it's that thing of using tools like Motion to be able to see what's winning, and then cutting those bits up, making new ads, whatever. But for us, when we're looking at a variation approach, we're looking at the bits that we've changed, very similar to a science experiment, right? You want to change one variable and you want to focus on that one. If we're changing the hook, we want to, maybe keep the same messaging in that hook, for example. So if it's just a visual, we can just see what's changing there. So that's our approach. We normally do maximum 3 variations per angle. I feel like it's a nice amount. It's not too much. It's not too little. But yeah, when it comes to actually when you found your winners and you want to make more winners out of them, I'm not going to lie, I'm not the best person to speak about that. Maybe in 6 months when I've learned that skill set a bit more.
No one's going to hold you to it. And I think I just wanted to get a peek into your brain with a quick follow-up on that one, because as you're thinking about if you want to actually offer a service like this, I'm curious, off of gut reaction to this question, if someone said hey, this one's winning, can we do some iterations off of it? Would you most likely go and say yeah, let's do an entire new shoot of different hooks because we know this is where it would change? Or what would be your approach? Would you keep it UGC mashed up with something else? I know it's a hard one, but just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, I mean, my gut reaction would be, well, let's find out what part of that is winning would be the first thing, right? You can have a winning ad, but the body might be trash. It's not holding people, but the hook is great. So let's find out what part of it is winning. And then after that, if it's the hook that's winning, well, let's chop that hook out. Let's find a body that was winning and let's glue them together, because that makes the most sense. But yeah, I mean, one thing we do is when we have the data come in from 1 month's worth of work, we'll look at the data then and say, okay, well, this hook was working really well. Let's reshoot that, or at least reuse that idea and concept. Let's reuse that and put it somewhere else. Or I was just on the phone to a client today, and we realized from the data that ads that were just showing the product on its own didn't do very well. Okay, well, from that's valuable data for us to then go in and say, okay, well, let's never show the product on its own and not being, worked with in the future. So there are different ways you can do it, even if it is net new.
Cool, I love it. Juan has a really great question here, digging into your best practices brain or some things that you've seen win more recently. So Juan asks, what's your winning formula when creating an ad?
Problem solution, easy, there's a reason why everyone uses problem solution. And it's the simple fact that if you have a problem, which is a big enough problem for you that you are going to buy something to solve it, then when you are presented with a solution to that problem, it makes sense that you're going to go ahead and you're going to purchase that product. So if you can, again, targeting with your creative, which is what Fraggle is basically built on, right? If you can target your creative properly to people that have that specific problem, right, then it makes it very easy for people to buy it, because pain is a fantastic motivator for people to go and do something. You know, if you're really bad, you know, we've just been watching the golf. If you're really bad at golf, then man, I mean, trust me, as someone which isn't great at golf, although loves to think he is very good at golf, I will spend a lot of money to make myself better at golf, right? Because that's a pain that I have, and that's why that is by far the best formula you can use for an ad.
You heard it here, folks. You know what to do on your next one. You know what to do on your next one. Do you have, so this is kind of in line with Julia's question here, but something I'm curious about, like, do you have a reel of the stuff that you've made, like, that we can share with folks? Because Julia is asking, where do you look for inspiration? Which is a good question. But I'm curious, can like people use you for inspiration? It's like, what have you made? And like, we can
obviously, obviously my ads are the best. Why wouldn't you want to use them as inspiration? Yeah, I mean, you can head to our website, right? It's just fraggle.agency if you want, FRAGGELL.agency. So you can head there if you want. There's a ton of our ads on there. I can share our foreplay board that has a ton of our ads on there as well. But yeah, where we look for inspiration is like primarily foreplay, to be honest. Because it's just a really easy way to find the ads that everyone's saving. Is one easy way to do it, right? Because if you're sorry, my mind, because I'm doing something else now. I'm trying to find that thing for you. Okay, so here is where you can find a lot of our stuff. I'll send it to you, Evan.
Throw it into the chat too. Send it to me after, and I'll include it in the email. But definitely throw it into the chat.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll do. Okay, here you go. You can see all of our stuff there. But yeah, when you're looking for inspiration, it's really important not to just go to your competitors. That's the most important thing. That's what most people go to is your competitors, because they're doing the same thing. Or you don't want to just copy them, because how many times have you looked at one advert and then all you've got is basically the same advert for different companies, especially in like the dropshipping world? That happens all the time. So look at the niche instead. If you're in the cleaning niche, look at cleaning niche instead of like eco products, whatever, right? Like you want to look in that sphere. But yeah, foreplay is a great place to see it. I watch a crap ton of YouTube, and you'll be surprised, especially when you're like looking at like high production stuff, how many times when you're looking at tech YouTubers and stuff like that, like some of the shots they do and stuff are like incredible, and you're like, I want to use that in our next project. Yeah, so definitely place that. But just in terms of ad stuff, definitely foreplay, and Twitter is great as well, or X. Sorry, my bad.
Whatever we call it. And Sean has a really good follow-up to this, just with inspiration in mind. Also a funny question. So Sean asks, have you found a good AI tool that can create visual storyboards for people who can't even draw a stick man? Asking for a friend.
I mean, you saw our storyboards. There was a crudely drawn stick man shot in there. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, do that. If that's the best way to get your like idea out there, just do that. We spend a lot of time, like, you know, our creative strategists spend a lot of time trying to find like example shots on Pinterest and all that places. I haven't found a great tool for this. I think there definitely needs to be something. There's a lot of like professional level tools out there. You know, but even if it's a case of just like, Matt, it's easy to just grab your phone, like just grab your phone and just shoot it, quickly send it to your computer and like make them that way. That's definitely one way that you can do it for sure. Like, don't think so like, I need a pay monthly solution for this. You know, there's probably, you know, easier and cheaper ways to do it.
Definitely. Okay, in the final 3 minutes here, I'm going to try my best to get to a wider range of questions. So it might be a little random, but try my best.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I'll
you.
be fast.
Okay.
Go on.
Jacqueline has a question here. For the UGC process, is your team editing the final video? Or are you guiding the creator on how to edit it?
We're editing the final video. The creator sends over the raws. We edit the video, mainly because we're professional editors. I hate to say it, but most UGC creators aren't. They don't have the tools to their disposal disposal, there we go, that's the word, that we do. So we just choose to do it. It's much easier. Yeah.
Kevin has a question, which is a good one. How do you lead a brainstorm with your team so they stay on track with the right idea and not get stuck on outlandish tangents potentially?
I mean, I am the king of outlandish tangents, so this is probably not the best question for me, but yeah, that's a difficult one to answer. I don't have an answer for that one. I say if you're in a creative team, let everyone be creative. It doesn't matter where it takes them. Eventually, you'll get yourself back there.
So the part that I can add there is if you have an operator in the room who's also project management oriented and keep you on track with timeline wise, you don't want to stop the creative juices. It's just making sure everyone moves with the timeline you have. So it's like contain it to an hour, but let it go crazy within the hour or something along those lines.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
how I kind of see it. For sure. Okay. And then another one that we see pop up is, I saw a client one that I have to pull here. Oh, Missy had a good question. Have you had moments where you find a winning insight or a problem that's different than the client had originally briefed you on, or that you briefed the client on? If so, how would you handle it?
Yeah. So our clients don't brief us on anything. They will tell us what the SKU is and what problem that solves in their brain. But when it comes to the actual creative, we take care of everything for that exact reason, right? We, especially if you're a brand and you're hiring an agency, part of that great thing is that the agency is looking from it from a customer point of view and not a brand point of view, right? That's the biggest thing between like an in-house brand creative and an agency creative. They're two different people. They're working on different things. So that allows them to be able to identify different problems. So let them cook is what I say. That's the easiest way.
And then the last one, we're sneaking it in here, Emil. So we want to get to the people who are just starting out. If you were starting today and working for a brand, what would you do to go from 0 to 1 in terms of producing an ad creative? So it's just like
buy Creative OS. Buy Creative OS, first one. Go to creativeos.io, grab Creative, start making as much static creative as you possibly can. Use tools like Midjourney to make some static imagery if you have to. Go get some really great 3D renders done. It'll cost a little bit of money, but it is priceless. Shoot some stuff with your iPhone. Get your creators to shoot stuff as well of your product. Put it all together in some statics. Get that shit out there. And then also like go heavy on UGC. Hire a creative strategist. Done. Easy. I can take you there. I'll go 0 to a mil. 0 to a mil, baby.
And just make sure you do your research. That's the only thing I'll add. It's like, make sure you know what you're asking Midjourney to do or anything along those process. Know the pain points that you want to be able to solve. But Fraser, man, we've gone around it. We've gone through the flywheel. We've unpacked high producing ads. I sincerely appreciate you. Everybody, let's throw some love in the chat. Like, thank you for your time, all that good stuff. You've been absolutely incredible. And then finally, everyone who's joining us. I love the energy that always comes in these chats and everyone who attends these events. You mean the world to us. Thank you so much for your ears, your eyes, and your time. If you do have any other questions, like shoot us a note, connect with us, and we've definitely got your backs. Okay? Fraser,
amazing.
Appreciate you, sir. We got to do this again at some point.
Thank you so much, man. It's good. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Most definitely.
Bye.